Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Sumit Gupta. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting, Life Unscripted. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you, Christina, for having me.
Oh my gosh, you're welcome. I'm so grateful to have you here. You're going to talk about something. You've been a serial entrepreneur and founder of deployyourself.com, helping people with leadership and build successful companies. But today you're going to give managers the 5 steps that they need to improve their work culture. And it's never been more needed, with a lot of managers having to negotiate employees working from home, and some part-time in the office, some at home, and to really get that culture working in unison, even though things are still up in the air in a lot of places. So welcome.
Thank you once again.
Yeah, so tell me, what even brought you to the world of entrepreneurship? How did that work out for you?
Yeah, I think I have always been passionate about discovering what all can I do, especially in the context of leadership, dreaming big and trying to follow my passions. I think that brought me to entrepreneurship. That brought me to get very passionate about human potential and leadership.
Yeah. And, leadership is so important. What's your interpretation of leadership? Because some people say, well, only certain people can be leaders and some people can't. What is your interpretation of leadership?
I think like any skill, it can be learned. I do believe we all are leaders anyways. It's not leader. We do not become leaders by a title or by becoming a manager in a company. So we all are leading our lives. Like we all are doing so, whether good or bad, poorly or whichever way. We all are leaders in a certain way. It's only about realizing that we have that and then getting better at it. For some people, it is more natural because of the circumstances they grow up in, because of the kind of challenges or the circumstances of their life. But for others, it might just might have to go through a period of learning.
Yeah, that's true. Some people think, only certain people can learn this. And it is a skill that people can learn, but just because you've gotten the title, I like that you mentioned that, because so many people I've worked with as a consultant will say, well, I'm a manager, it's my title. I take care of these 8 people here. But, having the title doesn't necessarily mean you have the skills to lead. So what is your interpretation that people get wrong with leadership or the idea of leadership?
I think this is also true for my own journey. When I started, I felt leadership is common sense. And because of that, I didn't need anybody to tell me or show me. And the first impression when you read the books, business books, leadership books, is that they're talking about common sense. And so I don't need any training for that. How I have changed in my thinking is that it is, yes, I do still believe it is a lot of common sense, like trusting people, making sure your relationships are strong, focusing on where you want to go. So all of this is common sense. There's nothing new here. But at the same time, I think the mistake people make is to say that what is common or what is simple will also be easy.
Yeah.
So it's very simple. It's very common. I think leadership, everybody comes at the same points, but from different angles.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not about knowing something. It's about practicing something. We all know that we shouldn't let our emotions take control, and we should learn to express our emotions. But knowing about it doesn't matter. Whether you can do it in the heat of the moment or not, that's where the rubber meets the road. So yes, it is all common sense, but it's not easy. It's not trivial. And I think that's where the role of training, the role of coaching, a role of a lot of external intervention comes in, which you will discount if you do not see the value of it.
Yeah. And you mentioned something I heard you just mentioned quickly about trusting the people that you hire and the people who are under you. And it's so true. One thing I've gotten from working with companies is some of the managers or leadership will not always trust the people beneath them that they've hired to do certain jobs. And if they feel that they're not trusted or given the tools to do what they have to do, then it's a breakdown of the whole structure.
Exactly, and I see management working for people rather than people working for managers, and then with that inverted lens, with that frame, the role of the manager becomes to make sure that the employee has everything to succeed in their job.
Yeah, well, this is great. Yeah, I
Yes.
totally get where you're coming from. Now let's talk more about the improving of work culture. I don't know what your experience has been during the whole COVID and pandemic around your the people you work with, but how has that affected some of the people you've helped and trained, and what are some of your takeaways on how people can improve culture, especially if it's kind of a not all working from the office, maybe a mix of working from office and home.
Yes. So my understanding of, and my also my learnings from the last year and a half is has been that the fundamentals remain the same. So we might be doing very different things. We might be working remotely. We might be talking on Zoom like we are, but we are still dealing with people. We're still dealing with issues like trust, psychological safety, workplace culture, and that is what is more important when it comes to performance rather than
Uh-huh.
any specific strategies or tactics. So this is where I have seen leaders struggle. If they have taken what was working for the physical world and
Mm.
tried to apply the same thing in the virtual world, either by doing virtual dinners or virtual stand-ups.
Yeah.
And these things are strategies. The
Mm.
foundations is still the same, but if you apply the strategy of one context to another context, it might not work because virtual is a different ball
Yeah.
game altogether. Yet the fundamental remains the same, right? If you have trust in your team, the performance will be better. If you do not trust people, then conflict will be more likely.
Yeah.
So the fundamental is the same, but how you deal with it,
Mhm.
changes.
Yeah, it's interesting for me. What I gathered from working with the companies I've consult with or have had conversations with, one thing that's come up is that now that things are starting to get back to normal, a lot of the companies are calling back their employees, and I'm seeing this resistance of people going, "Well, no, I like my time. This non-travel really saves on time. I get to spend more time with my family. I don't want to sit in traffic." And there's this kind of tension right now. What is your suggestion to companies who are having that pushback on how they can maybe mix it, a little bit office, a little bit at home, and make less of a pushback? What's your suggestion?
My suggestion would be to listen and adapt. I think it's so simple, yet it's so often ignored. Right?
Yeah.
As a manager, as a leadership team, I decide what is best. Right? Who am I to decide what is best for my people? They are doing their job.
Mhm.
They know the best, the circumstances they are in. They know their personal situation best, right? How much anxiety they have, how much stress they have about things. I cannot make decisions for them. I cannot make
Mhm.
assumptions for them. So how do you get people together and make a collective decision rather than
Mhm.
a decision which you have to enforce?
I like
And
that.
then to give people space and time to ease back. Like when we suddenly moved to virtual, everything was locked down. It caused a lot of anxiety. And similarly, if you suddenly ask people to come to work,
Mhm.
it will again cause a lot of anxiety. So any change, I think we need to give it space, we need to give it time,
Mhm.
and then people adapt. But if you try to push it down somebody's throat, people will choke, people will try to push back, whether consciously or subconsciously, but that's just how human beings are.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. I like that because when you make it we're coming at this together team because we're all working at this together. It's not just you. You need your working team with you to help things go forward. And one thing I've gotten is like still a lot of the schools are shut down. So parents are like having to negotiate who's going to be watching my kid, who's going to be here while they try to do their studies, and to leave them alone is just not feasible. So I think it works in everyone's best interest if we come to something that works for everyone. And let's say, I mean, we've been working for home, a lot of companies for almost 2 years, so it has been working for quite a few companies. So what have you seen that people can do today, like one tip or a couple strategies that business owners can implement today to increase and better improve their work culture?
I think one thing which you mentioned and which is a commonly thrown around word is team, right? Yet a team, what is a team, right? And yet we focus so much on individual performance,
Yeah.
and this is very related to culture also,
Mhm.
because people perform not just because of their individual ability, but because of the culture of the team of the company that they are in, right? So instead of focusing on individuals of individual performance ratings, to shift the attention to the team, to shift the attention, what does this team is here for?
Yeah.
what is the purpose of this team? What is the outcome that will make this team successful? And then let the team decide how to create that. What are the resources they need, whether virtually, physically, or in whichever way. And then let the team own it rather than focusing on individuals or even focusing on a manager or one star performer. Let everybody come together. And I think that's where the role of coaching comes in. As a manager, coaching brings that cohesiveness. Coaching brings everybody together rather than saying, I am the best or you are the top performer, so you take care of this, you take care of this. Coaching is basically saying, let's rise together. Rather than saying, like, pinpointing fingers, either I am deciding for you or one of you is deciding.
Yeah, I love that because I recall we had this manager that would give games for us to meet a quota per se. Like if we can bring in this many sales or together as a team, you'll each get $100 or you'll each get pizza for the day or something like that. And it gets you working together, and maybe the underperformers, people who are new, who don't have as many leads or need a little extra push, we all work together to meet that one goal. And it's such a great way, instead of just pinpointing, as you said, the one top performer and putting it on their shoulders.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, this has been fabulous. We could go on for a long time, I know, and give our audience even more tips, but I want them to find out more about you, how they can work with you. How can they do that?
Yeah, so I'm most active on LinkedIn. People can find me on LinkedIn. And then I also have a bi-weekly newsletter, which goes out on deployyourself.com/newsletter. So these are the two best ways to keep in touch with me. And then for also to listen to what I am learning, what I am reflecting on, and how I am using that knowledge to help teams, help leaders in their respective jobs.
And how do you work with companies? If they wanted to work with you, what does that look like?
So it's mostly individual work and group work, working with either an individual leader one-on-one or with a team on a longer term basis. So I only work with people for 6 months or longer. Because as I said, right, change takes time. Changing behavior takes time, and pushing it across somebody doesn't work. So creating that space for others to flourish. So there is a lot of learning going on in the first 6 months of the coaching as well. But the real results, the magical results, start to show up in the 6 months and beyond period, because that's where you start getting comfortable with the new ideas and you start to practice, you learn a little bit, you fail a little bit. And things starting to getting more natural for you. It's like when you start driving a car, it takes a while before you get used to all the levers, all the clutches, brakes, and also keeping an eye on what is happening outside the car. Like what is the weather, how is the road like, what are other cars near me doing. It takes some time. So for me, it's a similar, longer term, longer duration, more long term, more deep work, sometimes even confronting work, but at the same time very magical at the end.
Awesome. Well, this is perfect. Thank you, Mr. Gupta, for coming today and sharing your great brilliance and wisdom with our savvy audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina, for having me.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.